Aurora Gray stands in the center of Westfield Academy's main hall, her laptop open, displaying evidence that will destroy Kenneth Foster's entire family. Security footage from 8 years ago shows a black sedan deliberately ramming into her mother's car. Kenneth watches in horror as his father's license plate becomes clearly visible on the screen. The same accident that created the scar he's been mocking for 3 years. What Kenneth doesn't know yet is that Aurora has been planning this moment since the day she transferred to his school. Every insult, every cruel laugh, every moment of torment has been carefully orchestrated to lead to this single devastating revelation. But let's start from the beginning. When Aurora Gray first walked through those academy doors 3 years ago, the fluorescent lights of Westfield Academy cafeteria buzz overhead as Aurora Gray sits alone at table 47. The same table she's occupied every lunch period for 3 years. Her long brown hair falls like a curtain across the left side of her face, carefully concealing the jagged scar that runs from her ear to her chin, a reminder of the night that changed everything. She picks at her sandwich, methodically, her eyes constantly scanning the room with the precision of a surveillance camera. Kenneth Foster enters the cafeteria like royalty arriving at court. His $200 blazer perfectly pressed. His Rolex Submariner catching the light with every gesture. 4 loyal followers trail behind him. Marcus Webb, son of the city's police chief, Tyler Harrison, whose family owns the largest construction company in the state, Jake Martinez, from the old money banking dynasty, and Brandon Smith, whose pharmaceutical fortune spans 3 generations. Together, they represent more wealth and influence than most small countries. And they know it. Look at her. Kenneth's voice carries across the cafeteria as he points directly at Aurora, sitting there like some wounded animal. His perfectly styled blonde hair and piercing blue eyes give him the appearance of a young god, which is exactly how he sees himself. I swear that scar gets more disgusting every day. Maybe she should invest in a paper bag. Aurora doesn't flinch. She never does. Instead, she takes another small bite of her sandwich and continues reading her calculus textbook. The same textbook she's read cover to cover 17 times. But if someone looked closely, really closely, they might notice something strange. Her eyes aren't moving across the pages. They're memorizing every word Kenneth speaks, cataloging every cruel laugh, every snicker from his followers. If you're already feeling the tension building, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories of justice served. And if these tales of standing up to bullies inspire you as much as they inspire me to share them, consider hitting the thanks button below. Your support helps me continue bringing these powerful stories to light. Thank you for being here with me on this journey. Kenneth's cruelty isn't random, it's surgical. He's spent 3 years perfecting the art of psychological warfare against anyone he deems beneath him. But Aurora has always been his favorite target. Something about her quiet dignity, her refusal to break, drives him to escalate further and further, like a predator sensing wounded prey. "Hey, Freddy Krueger!" Kenneth calls out, abandoning all pretense of subtlety. "Did you sleep face first in a blender again?" His followers explode into laughter, the sound echoing off the cafeteria walls like artillery fire. Other students look up from their meals. Some appear uncomfortable, others openly amused. A few take out their phones, hoping to capture whatever happens next. Aurora slowly closes her textbook and looks up. For just a moment, her hair parts enough to reveal the full extent of her scar. It's worse than most people realize. A vicious slash that speaks of violence and trauma. But there's something else in her expression, something that would terrify Kenneth if he were smart enough to recognize it. Her dark eyes hold no fear, no shame, only a cold, calculating intelligence that seems completely at odds with her victim status. Mrs. Patterson, supervising lunch duty, notices the commotion but deliberately looks away. The same way she's looked away for 3 years. Kenneth's father, Mayor Foster, is the reason her salary increased 15% last year. The reason her daughter got into the prestigious state university despite mediocre grades. Some things are worth more than the dignity of one scarred girl. Aurora stands slowly, gathering her books with deliberate precision. Every movement controlled and purposeful. As she walks past Kenneth's table, he extends his foot slightly. Not enough to be called intentional, but enough to send her stumbling. Her books scatter across the polished floor, calculus equations and chemistry formulas mixing with cafeteria debris. "Oops," Kenneth grins, his teeth unnaturally white thanks to years of expensive orthodontics. "I didn't see you there. Hard to notice something so damaged." Aurora kneels to collect her scattered belongings, but instead of the humiliation Kenneth expects, she moves with methodical efficiency. As she reaches for her physics notebook, her fingers brush against something else. A small device, no bigger than a button, which she attaches to the underside of Kenneth's chair. The movement is so smooth, so practiced, that even someone watching closely would miss it. She stands without a word, her books once again perfectly organized, and walks away. But Kenneth isn't satisfied. He never is. "That's right, monster," he calls after her. "Crawl back to whatever cave you came from." The escalation begins the very next morning. Kenneth's cruelty following a predictable pattern that Aurora has been documenting for 3 years. Level 1 always starts with verbal assault, psychological pressure designed to break down her defenses and establish his dominance. "Good morning, Halloween mask," Kenneth announces as Aurora approaches her locker, his voice carrying the false cheerfulness of a game show host. "Did you remember to check under your bed for mirrors? Wouldn't want you frightening yourself." His followers laugh on cue. A chorus of privilege and entitlement that echoes through the hallway. Aurora enters her combination, 7492, the same numbers she uses for everything because they represent the date her mother died. Inside her locker, everything is meticulously organized. Textbooks arranged by subject, supplies sorted by color and function. But there's something else, something that would shock Kenneth if he knew. Hidden behind a false panel are 3 smartphones, 2 tablets, and recording equipment worth more than most people's cars. Level 2 arrives during 3rd period. Social isolation tactics designed to make Aurora a pariah among her peers. Kenneth spreads through the school like a virus, whispering poison into receptive ears. "I heard she got that scar in a gang fight," he tells Jennifer Walsh, captain of the volleyball team. "My dad says her family has connections to organized crime." The lie is absurd, but Jennifer's family depends on city contracts. She nods along enthusiastically. "Someone told me she used to cut herself," he informs David Kim during chemistry lab. "That's why she keeps it hidden. Probably still has the razor blades." David, whose family immigrated from Seoul with nothing and built a successful restaurant chain, knows better than to cross the mayor's son. By lunch, Aurora sits completely alone, the invisible barriers around her table extending wider than ever before. Students who might have shown sympathy now avert their eyes. Some even change direction when they see her approaching. Kenneth watches from his throne across the cafeteria, satisfied with his handiwork. But Aurora isn't broken. She's collecting data. Every whispered lie, every cruel rumor, every act of social manipulation gets recorded by the network of devices she's planted throughout the school. Her laptop, hidden in her backpack, processes audio feeds from 17 different locations, creating a comprehensive map of Kenneth's influence and methods. Level 3 escalates to property destruction, a violation of Aurora's personal space designed to send a clear message about her worthlessness. She arrives at her locker Monday morning to find it defaced with red spray paint, the word monster dripping down the metal like blood. Her textbooks have been soaked with chocolate milk, her carefully organized supplies scattered and destroyed. Principal Davidson examines the damage with theatrical concern, his gray mustache twitching with what might be suppressed amusement. "This is very troubling, Miss Gray," he says, his voice carrying all the sincerity of a politician's campaign promise. "Unfortunately, without witnesses or camera footage, there's little we can do." Aurora knows the cameras in this hallway have been mysteriously malfunctioning for weeks, a coincidence that benefits Kenneth's activities. She also knows Principal Davidson received a generous donation from the Foster Foundation just last month, enough to fund the new gymnasium and secure his early retirement. Some investigations never get started. "I understand, sir," Aurora replies, her voice steady despite the destruction around her. "I'll clean this up myself." But as she kneels to salvage what remains of her belongings, her fingers find another small device, which she attaches to the underside of a nearby water fountain. Her network grows stronger with each attack. Level 4 brings public humiliation, Kenneth's specialty, and the arena where he feels most comfortable demonstrating his power. During English literature class, he raises his hand with the enthusiasm of a star pupil, his blue eyes sparkling with malicious intent. "Mrs. Henderson," he says, his voice dripping with false concern, "I was wondering if we could discuss the theme of beauty and ugliness in The Picture of Dorian Gray. I think Aurora might have some unique insights into that topic." Mrs. Henderson, desperate to maintain her position despite budget cuts threatening the arts department, seizes on Kenneth's apparent academic interest. "That's an excellent observation, Kenneth. Aurora, would you like to share your perspective on how physical appearance affects our perception of character?" All eyes turn to Aurora, 28 pairs of teenage judgment focusing on her scarred face like laser beams. Kenneth leans back in his chair, practically purring with satisfaction. This is exactly the kind of public spectacle he craves. Aurora stands slowly, her hand unconsciously moving to cover her scar, a gesture that draws even more attention to the damaged tissue. For a moment, she appears genuinely vulnerable, a 17-year-old girl confronting her worst nightmare. "I think," she begins, her voice barely above a whisper, "that people often mistake surface damage for internal corruption. Sometimes the most beautiful facades hide the most rotten cores, while those who appear damaged on the outside possess the strongest moral foundations." The words hang in the air like a challenge, and for just a moment, Kenneth's smile falters. There was something in Aurora's tone, something that felt less like weakness and more like a warning. But the moment passes, and his confidence returns. After all, what could a scarred freak possibly do to someone like him? The breaking point arrives on a Tuesday in November, 3 years, 4 months, and 16 days after Aurora first walked through Westfield Academy's doors. Kenneth has been building toward this moment without realizing it. Each previous attack escalating the stakes until only something truly devastating will satisfy his need for dominance. He corners Aurora after school near the loading dock, a blind spot in the security system that he's used before for his more questionable activities. Marcus, Tyler, Jake, and Brandon form a semicircle behind him, blocking any potential escape routes. The autumn air carries the scent of dying leaves and teenage cruelty. "You know what I realized today?" Kenneth begins, his voice carrying the lazy confidence of a predator discussing dinner plans. "I've been way too nice to you. 3 years of gentle teasing when what you really need is some honest feedback." He pulls out his iPhone, the latest model that costs more than most families spend on groceries in 6 months. The camera app opens with a soft chime, the sound somehow more threatening than any weapon. "I'm going to do you a favor," Kenneth continues, positioning the phone to capture Aurora's scarred profile. "I'm going to show the world what real ugliness looks like. Maybe if enough people see this, you'll finally get the message and transfer somewhere more appropriate for your condition." Aurora backs against the brick wall, her usual composure finally cracking under the pressure of public humiliation on a global scale. "Please," she whispers. And for the first time in 3 years, Kenneth hears genuine fear in her voice. "Don't do this." "Oh, but I have to," Kenneth replies, his finger hovering over the record button. "It's for your own good. And honestly, it's going to be hilarious." The video he records is masterful in its cruelty. 6 minutes and 37 seconds of psychological torture that captures every angle of Aurora's scar, every moment of her distress, every cruel comment designed to maximize viral potential. Kenneth provides running commentary like a nature documentary narrator describing a wounded animal. "Look at this, everybody," his voice echoes with theatrical disgust. "This is what happens when genetics go wrong. I mean, seriously, how does someone even leave the house looking like this?" The camera zooms in on Aurora's scar, the jagged line appearing even more pronounced under the harsh autumn sunlight. Within 2 hours, the video has been uploaded to TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube, tagged with hashtags like #Scarface, #Monster@School, and #UglyTruth. Kenneth's followers share it across their networks, and their followers share it further. By evening, Aurora's humiliation has reached viral status, 37,000 views and climbing. The comments section becomes a feeding frenzy of anonymous cruelty. Teenagers from around the world competing to craft the most vicious insults. "She looks like Freddy Krueger's daughter," writes @SkaterBoy2024. "Someone should start a GoFundMe for plastic surgery," suggests @PrincessPink. "How is this legal? She's basically a monster," declares @TruthTeller99. Aurora arrives home to find her father waiting. William Gray sits in their modest living room like a king in exile, his $3,000 suit looking completely out of place among the IKEA furniture and discount store decorations. His silver hair is perfectly styled despite the late hour. His gray eyes hold the kind of cold intelligence that built technology empires and destroyed competitors. "I saw the video," he says simply, his voice carrying the weight of billions in assets and decades of corporate warfare. "Are you ready?" Aurora looks at her reflection in the darkened window, the scar that has defined her for 8 years catching the lamplight. For 3 years, she's endured Kenneth's cruelty, documented his crimes, built her case, prepared for this moment. Now, finally, the time for pretense has ended. "Yes," she whispers, and something fundamental shifts in the room, like the moment before lightning strikes. "I'm ready to stop playing victim." William nods and reaches into his briefcase, withdrawing a laptop that costs more than most people's cars. The screen displays a complex interface, networks, bank accounts, security systems, and communication channels that span the globe. This isn't the equipment of a struggling single father. This is the command center of a technological emperor. Then, let's introduce Kenneth Foster to the real Aurora Gray, Williams says, his smile carrying the promise of vengeance. I think it's time he learned what happens when you hurt a billionaire's daughter. The transformation begins immediately. Aurora's modest bedroom revealing itself as an elaborate disguise. Hidden panels slide away to expose multiple computer monitors, servers humming with the power of a small data center, communication equipment that could coordinate military operations. The walls, previously decorated with typical teenage posters, now display detailed maps, photographs, and documents. 3 years of intelligence gathering on the Foster family and their criminal enterprise. Aurora sits at her primary workstation, her fingers flying across multiple keyboards with the precision of a concert pianist. Windows cascade across her monitors. Bank records, email accounts, security footage, phone conversations. The digital life of Kenneth Foster spreads before her like an open book, and she's about to rewrite every chapter. "Target acquired," she murmurs, her voice carrying none of the vulnerability Kenneth has grown accustomed to. This is the voice of Phoenix, the legendary hacker who once brought down 3 government agencies in a single night. Her reputation in certain circles is mythical, a ghost in the machine who can penetrate any system, crack any code, expose any secret. She begins with Kenneth's phone. The same device he used to record her humiliation now becomes a window into his private world. Text messages reveal his drug use. Photos show illegal gambling activities. Videos capture him cheating on exams and bribing teachers. 3 years of digital evidence pour across her screens, enough to destroy his reputation 10 times over. But Aurora isn't interested in simple revenge. She's building a case for systematic destruction. Her investigation expands to include Kenneth's inner circle. Marcus Webb's father, Police Chief Webb, has been taking bribes from local crime families. Tyler Harrison's construction company uses substandard materials and falsifies safety inspections. Jake Martinez's banking dynasty launders money for international cartels. Brandon Smith's pharmaceutical empire has been suppressing research on life-saving medications to protect profit margins. The Foster family tree reveals its rot all the way to the roots. Mayor Foster has been embezzling city funds for years, using his position to award contracts to friends and family while taking percentages of every deal. His wife Helen runs a charity that funnels donations into private accounts. Even Kenneth's younger sister Emma has been selling test answers and forging college application essays. But the deepest secret, the one Aurora has been hunting for 8 years, finally reveals itself in a password-protected folder labeled Insurance Policy. Security footage from 8 years ago shows a black sedan following a silver Honda through downtown traffic, the sedan accelerating deliberately, ramming the smaller car at 60 miles per hour. The license plate is clearly visible. Mayor Foster's personal vehicle, driven by a man whose face matches Kenneth's older brother David. Aurora's hands tremble as she watches her mother's final moments. The impact that killed Rebecca Gray instantly and left 9-year-old Aurora scarred for life. The footage continues, showing David Foster fleeing the scene while emergency responders struggle to save a little girl trapped in burning wreckage. Additional files reveal the cover-up. Police reports falsified to blame mechanical failure. Witnesses intimidated into silence. Evidence destroyed or misplaced. The Foster family orchestrated Rebecca Gray's murder to eliminate her investigation into city corruption. They never expected her daughter to survive, and they certainly never anticipated that daughter would grow up to become their worst nightmare. Aurora uploads the evidence to secure servers around the world, copies distributed to journalists, law enforcement agencies, and hacktivist networks. But she's not finished. Kenneth Foster deserves to experience the same public humiliation he's inflicted on others, and Aurora has the perfect platform for her revelation. She accesses Kenneth's social media accounts, the same platforms he used to spread her viral humiliation. His followers expect more content, more cruelty directed at Aurora Gray. Instead, they're about to witness the complete destruction of everything Kenneth represents. The posts begin at midnight, carefully crafted to maximize impact and engagement. Kenneth's Instagram features a photo of him at an illegal gambling table with the caption, "Lost my college fund again. Dad will just steal more from taxpayers to cover it." His TikTok shows him snorting cocaine at a party, perfectly synchronized to trending music. His Snapchat reveals intimate messages with his best friend's girlfriend, screenshot after screenshot of betrayal and manipulation. But the masterpiece appears on his YouTube channel, a 47-minute documentary titled The Foster Crime Family, a study in corruption. Aurora has crafted it like a true crime series, complete with dramatic music, professional graphics, and devastating evidence presented with the skill of a prosecutor. The video includes everything: the murder footage, the cover-up documents, the financial crimes, the systematic abuse of power. Within hours, Kenneth's digital life becomes a wasteland, his followers turning against him with the same vicious enthusiasm they once showed for Aurora's humiliation. The comments sections fill with outrage and disgust. Kenneth Foster begins trending worldwide, but not in the way he ever imagined. Aurora watches the numbers climb, views, shares, angry reactions spreading across the internet like wildfire. Kenneth's phone buzzes constantly. Friends, family, strangers all demanding explanations for the damning evidence now displayed for the world to see. His carefully constructed image crumbles in real time, the golden boy revealed as the spawn of murderers and thieves. She allows herself a small smile, the first genuine expression of happiness she's shown in 3 years. Kenneth Foster wanted to make her famous. Now he'll discover exactly what viral infamy feels like when the target has the resources to fight back. Watching Aurora finally fight back after years of torment, knowing what we now know about her mother's murder and her family's power, what would you have done in her position? Would you have revealed everything immediately, or do you think her 3-year plan was the right approach? Comment below and let me know your thoughts. The fallout begins at dawn. Kenneth's phone erupting with notifications like a digital earthquake. His Instagram followers plummet from 47,000 to 3,000 overnight. His TikTok account receives a community guidelines strike. His YouTube channel faces immediate suspension. But the real devastation comes from closer to home. His father's campaign headquarters receives 17 calls from major donors withdrawing support. His mother's charity loses tax-exempt status pending investigation. And his sister Emma finds her Harvard acceptance letter mysteriously rescinded. Aurora watches the chaos unfold from her command center. Multiple screens displaying news feeds, social media metrics, and law enforcement communications. The story has reached national attention. CNN picks up the murder footage at 6 a.m. Fox News runs an exposé on political corruption at 7. And by 8 o'clock, FBI vehicles are parked outside Mayor Foster's mansion. Kenneth arrives at school in a daze, his usual confidence replaced by paranoid confusion. Students who once fought for his attention now whisper behind his back, some pointing openly at their phones where his humiliation plays on endless loop. The golden boy has become a pariah overnight, and he has no idea how it happened. Marcus Webb approaches cautiously, his own family now under investigation thanks to Aurora's leaked evidence. "Dude, my dad thinks someone hacked all our phones," he whispers, his voice carrying the desperation of a drowning man. "The FBI showed up at our house at 5 a.m. with warrants." Tyler Harrison joins them, his construction company facing federal charges for safety violations and fraud. "My lawyers say we're looking at 20 years minimum," he mutters, his face pale with shock. Someone had access to everything: contracts, bank records, private communications. This isn't some random hacker. This is military-grade cyber warfare. Aurora passes them in the hallway, her hair still covering her scar, her demeanor unchanged from 3 years of victim status. But something is different. The way she walks, the angle of her shoulders, the steady confidence in her step. Kenneth catches a glimpse of her eyes, and for a split second, he sees something that makes his blood freeze. Recognition. Not the dull acceptance of a victim, but the sharp awareness of a predator who has been studying her prey for years. The realization hits him like a physical blow. Aurora Gray isn't just some random target he chose for amusement. She's been watching him, learning his patterns, documenting his crimes, building a case against his entire family. "It's her," Kenneth breathes, his voice barely audible. "That freak with the scar did this to us." But his certainty wavers when he tries to imagine how a damaged teenager could orchestrate such sophisticated attacks. Aurora Gray is nobody. A scarred outcast with no friends, no resources, no apparent connections to power. The idea that she could bring down 4 prominent families simultaneously seems impossible. Yet, the evidence keeps pointing in her direction. The systematic destruction continues throughout the week, Aurora targeting each member of Kenneth's circle with surgical precision. She releases Marcus Webb's drug-dealing videos to his father's police department. The irony of Police Chief Webb arresting his own son for trafficking cocaine becomes front-page news. Tyler Harrison's construction sites face surprise inspections that reveal catastrophic safety violations. 3 buildings are condemned. 17 workers file lawsuits for endangerment. Jake Martinez watches his family's banking empire crumble as Aurora releases evidence of money laundering operations spanning 2 decades. Federal investigators freeze assets worth $400 million while prosecutors prepare racketeering charges. Brandon Smith's pharmaceutical company faces class action lawsuits as Aurora exposes their suppression of life-saving research. Families of patients who died from treatable conditions demand justice and compensation. Each attack is perfectly timed, precisely calculated to maximize damage while maintaining Aurora's cover as an innocent victim. She continues attending classes, eating lunch alone, enduring the remaining whispers and stares. But now, there's an undercurrent of fear in how others look at her. Students begin to wonder if coincidence can really explain how everyone who tormented Aurora Gray suddenly faces catastrophic consequences. Kenneth grows increasingly desperate, his paranoia consuming every thought as his world collapses around him. He confronts Aurora directly after chemistry class, cornering her near the same loading dock where he filmed her humiliation. "I know it's you," he hisses, his perfect composure finally cracking to reveal the scared child beneath. "Somehow, you're doing this to my family, to my friends. You're destroying everything I care about." Aurora looks up at him with those dark, intelligent eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, she doesn't flinch away from his aggression. "I don't know what you're talking about," she says quietly, but there's steel in her voice now. "Maybe your family's problems have nothing to do with me." "Bullshit!" Kenneth spits, grabbing her wrist with enough force to leave bruises. "You think I'm stupid? Everyone who's ever messed with you suddenly gets exposed for criminal activity. That's not coincidence. That's revenge." Aurora's expression shifts. Just for a moment, Kenneth sees the mask slip. The broken victim disappears, replaced by something cold and calculating and utterly terrifying. "If I had the power to destroy your family," she says, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carries more menace than any shout. "Don't you think I would have done it years ago? Instead of sitting here, taking your abuse, letting you scar me over and over again." The words hit Kenneth like a slap. He realizes he's never really thought about Aurora as a person with feelings, motivations, or capabilities beyond her role as his victim. The idea that she might have her own agenda, her own plans, her own power, never occurred to him. But before he can process this revelation further, Principal Davidson's voice echoes through the school's intercom system. "All students and faculty report to the main auditorium immediately for an emergency assembly. This is not a drill." The auditorium fills with nervous energy. 500 students and 50 faculty members gathering under circumstances no one understands. Principal Davidson takes the stage with visible reluctance, his usual authority replaced by the hollow shell of a man whose corruption has been exposed to the world. "Ladies and gentlemen," he begins, his voice shaking slightly, "we're here today because Westfield Academy has become the center of a very serious investigation. Federal authorities have evidence of criminal activity involving several prominent families, and it appears that some of our students have been—" He pauses, searching for words, "systematically targeted by an unknown individual." Aurora sits in the back row, her position carefully chosen to provide the best view of the entire auditorium while remaining inconspicuous. Her laptop rests on her knees, connected to the school's wireless network through back doors she installed 3 years ago. Everything is ready for the final act. Kenneth stands near the front, surrounded by his remaining loyal followers, but increasingly isolated as his world crumbles. He scans the crowd desperately, looking for Aurora, for answers, for some way to regain control of his narrative. Principal Davidson continues, "The FBI has requested our cooperation in identifying any students who might have information about these criminal activities. They're particularly interested in anyone with advanced computer skills or unusual access to privileged information." The words hang in the air like an accusation, and slowly, heads begin to turn toward Aurora. 3 years of being the school's most notorious outcast now works against her. She's the obvious suspect for anyone seeking revenge against the popular crowd. Aurora feels the weight of their stares, 500 pairs of eyes focusing on her scarred face with new understanding. The victim narrative that protected her for so long begins to crumble as students realize the quiet girl in the back row might be more dangerous than anyone imagined. Kenneth sees his opportunity, pointing directly at Aurora with the dramatic flair of a prosecutor presenting evidence. "It's her!" he shouts, his voice echoing through the auditorium. "Aurora Gray has been behind all of this. She's the hacker who destroyed my family." The accusation ripples through the crowd, whispers becoming gasps, becoming shouts of recognition. Students remember every cruel joke, every moment of torment they witnessed or participated in, suddenly understanding that Aurora Gray might have been documenting everything, building cases against them all. But Aurora doesn't run, doesn't hide behind her hair or cower in her seat. Instead, she stands slowly, her laptop balanced perfectly in her hands, her posture radiating a confidence that silenced the room. "You're absolutely right, Kenneth," she says, her voice carrying clearly through the auditorium's sound system. Somehow, she's connected to the microphones. "I am Aurora Gray, and I have been behind everything that's happened to your family." The confession hits the room like a bomb. Students gasp. Faculty members step backward. Even Principal Davidson seems to shrink away from this revelation. But Aurora isn't finished. "But what Kenneth doesn't know," she continues, her fingers flying across her laptop keyboard, "is exactly why I've spent 3 years documenting his crimes and those of his family. The auditorium's projection screen flickers to life, displaying the security footage Aurora discovered in her investigation. The black sedan following the silver Honda through downtown traffic. The deliberate acceleration, the devastating impact. The license plate clearly visible. Mayor Foster's personal vehicle. 8 years ago, Aurora's voice continues with deadly calm. The Foster family murdered my mother. They caused the accident that gave me this scar, that left me orphaned and scarred for life. Kenneth has spent 3 years mocking the evidence of his family's crime. The room erupts in chaos. Students shouting questions, faculty demanding explanations, the sound of chairs scraping as people try to process this devastating revelation. But Aurora's voice cuts through the noise like a blade. "My name is Aurora Gray," she declares, her laptop now displaying bank records, corporate documents, federal investigation files. "And I am the daughter of William Gray, CEO of Gray Technologies, with a net worth of $25 billion. For 3 years, I've lived among you as a victim, documenting crimes, gathering evidence, building the case that will destroy everyone who participated in my mother's murder." Kenneth stares at the projection screen in horror, watching footage of his brother David fleeing the scene of a deadly crash, seeing documents that prove his family's systematic cover-up. The scar he's mocked for years suddenly takes on new meaning, not a random disfigurement, but evidence of his family's greatest crime. "You called me a monster," Aurora continues, her dark eyes fixed on Kenneth with laser intensity. "But you're looking at your own reflection. Every insult, every cruel joke, every moment of torment was directed at the evidence of your family's evil. You've been bullying your own victim for 3 years." The FBI agents who have been waiting outside now enter the auditorium, their timing perfectly coordinated with Aurora's revelation. They move with professional efficiency, some heading for Principal Davidson, others surrounding Kenneth and his remaining followers. "Kenneth Foster," Agent Sarah Martinez announces, her voice carrying the authority of federal law enforcement. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, harassment, and accessory to murder after the fact. Your family's crimes end today." Kenneth doesn't resist. He can't. The golden boy who once ruled Westfield Academy now stands in handcuffs, his empire of cruelty destroyed by the quiet girl whose scar he mocked. As the agents lead him away, he looks back at Aurora one final time, seeing not the victim he created, but the architect of his destruction. The aftermath unfolds like dominoes falling, each revelation triggering another collapse in the corrupt system that protected the Foster family for 8 years. Mayor Foster faces federal charges for murder, conspiracy, and racketeering, his political career ending in disgrace as voters demand justice. Helen Foster's charity scam results in fraud charges and restitution orders totaling $47 million. Kenneth's conviction for harassment and conspiracy carries a sentence of 8 years in federal prison. His college prospects destroyed, his social media infamy ensuring he'll never escape his crimes. Marcus Webb follows his father to prison as their drug operation faces RICO charges. Tyler Harrison's construction company declares bankruptcy while facing wrongful death lawsuits. Jake Martinez flees to a non-extradition country as his banking empire collapses. Brandon Smith's pharmaceutical fortune evaporates in class action settlements. Aurora stands before the Westfield Academy student body one final time, not as a victim, but as the symbol of justice served. The scar she once hid now catches the light like a badge of honor, proof that survival can transform into strength when guided by intelligence and determination. "I want you to remember something," she tells the assembled students. her voice carrying the authority of someone who has looked evil in the face and emerged victorious. Every act of cruelty, every moment of injustice, every abuse of power creates consequences. Sometimes those consequences take time to develop, but they always come. Resolution as the corrupt system crumbles. Escalation as new evidence continues surfacing. Visual clues in the federal agents still investigating. Emotional shifts as students grapple with their complicity. Ambiguous endings as other victims step forward with their own stories. And lines to remember that will echo through halls long after Aurora Gray has moved on to her next chapter. She establishes the Gray Foundation for Victims' Rights, a $50 million organization dedicated to protecting children from systematic abuse and holding powerful families accountable for their crimes. Westfield Academy implements comprehensive anti-bullying policies, mandatory reporting systems, anonymous tip lines, and zero-tolerance enforcement that ensures no future Aurora Gray will suffer in silence. But perhaps the most powerful change is invisible. The knowledge that victims are not always powerless, that justice delayed is not justice denied, and that sometimes the quiet girl with the scar has been planning your destruction for years. Kenneth Foster learns this lesson every day in federal prison, where his reputation as a wealthy bully makes him a target for inmates who understand exactly what kind of justice bullies deserve. His scar-mocking videos play on repeat in common areas, a constant reminder that karma always collects its debts. Aurora Gray, meanwhile, enrolls at MIT with a full scholarship and her choice of graduate programs. Her application essay about using technology to serve justice, inspiring professors, and changing curriculum. The scar remains, but it no longer defines her as a victim. It marks her as a survivor who became a warrior, who transformed pain into power and used both to build a better world.